Elias Trent had been walking home through the snow-choked streets of Halden Station when he saw her. The colony city was never meant for nights this cold. The terraforming generators had malfunctioned 2 months prior, and though the engineers claimed they were within safe parameters, anyone with lungs knew the truth. The nights cut like knives. And on this night, while the lamps sputtered and ice crystals floated in the air like drifting shards of glass, Elias found a woman sitting on the steps of the abandoned transit hub. She was curled against the wall, trembling violently, wrapped in nothing more than a thin cloth that looked more ceremonial than practical. Her skin was pale with a faint bluish sheen, and her eyes, huge, luminous, silver-like moons, lifted toward him. He hesitated. Strays, beggars, even the occasional con artist weren't unusual in Halden Station. But something about her was different. Her features were delicate, almost sculpted, but clearly not human. Her hands, clutching at her arms, bore a faint webbing between the fingers, and her ears swept back into gentle points. She whispered something, her voice airy and musical, but he didn't understand a word. Elias didn't think. He only knew one thing: she was freezing to death. He shrugged off his thick colony-issued coat, the only one he had, patched from years of use, and draped it around her shoulders. She flinched at first, then clutched the garment tightly, breathing into it as if it were a sacred relic. "You'll die out here," Elias muttered, more to himself than to her. He offered a hand. "Come on." She studied him, eyes wide, then slowly, hesitantly took it. The stranger in the apartment. Elias lived alone in a modest unit on the edge of the city's industrial district. Bringing a strange alien woman back with him was, he admitted, probably a terrible idea. There were regulations about harboring unregistered extraterrestrials under the Interplanetary Compact, and the authorities tended to err on the side of paranoia. But leaving her out there, well, he couldn't. He set her down by the old heater, draped blankets over her, and offered her a steaming cup of synth tea. She sniffed it suspiciously before sipping, then gave him a small nod as if acknowledging a treaty between their worlds. Hours passed. She said little, but her eyes followed him constantly, curious and cautious. Eventually, exhaustion overtook her, and she curled up on his couch. His coat wrapped around her like armor. Elias lay awake in his bed that night, staring at the ceiling, wondering what kind of trouble he had just invited into his life. A queen in hiding. The next morning, Elias awoke to find his apartment disturbingly quiet. He rushed into the main room, expecting her to be gone, maybe with his coat, maybe with half his belongings. Instead, she was standing by the window, still draped in the coat, gazing out at the smog-shrouded city. When she turned, her expression had shifted, less fragile, more commanding. She spoke again, this time in halting, broken standard. "You help me. You give warmth." Elias blinked. "You understand me. Learn listening." "I learn." Her voice, though imperfect in vocabulary, carried a resonance that made Elias stand straighter. She touched her chest. Amara." He introduced himself, awkwardly. She repeated his name, savoring the syllables, then looked around the apartment. "Safe. You safe man." He laughed nervously. "I wouldn't go that far." Then, before he could ask who she really was, the building shook with the roar of engines outside. Elias rushed to the window and froze. A convoy of armored skimmers had pulled up to the street below. Black insignias glared from their hulls. The crest of the Korath Dominion, a hostile faction notorious for smuggling, war profiteering, and piracy on the fringes of human space. Soldiers spilled out, armed with plasma rifles, scanning the streets with drones. Amara stiffened, her silver eyes narrowing. She muttered something in her native tongue, sharp and bitter. Then she looked at Elias. They hunt me. Elias swallowed. Why? Who are you? She met his gaze, unflinching now. I am Amara of Luthyra, first daughter. Queen. The revelation. Elias sat down hard on the arm of the couch. Queen. An alien queen. In his run-down apartment. Wearing his patched coat. You're serious, he whispered. Amara nodded gravely. She explained in fragments, each word carefully chosen as though she were threading a fragile tapestry. Her world, Luthyra, was a water-rich jewel coveted by the Korath Dominion. They had staged a coup, capturing much of her court. Amara had fled, smuggled through back channels, but her vessel was sabotaged and crash-landed near Holden Station. Now, the Dominion wanted her dead or captured before the Interstellar Council could intervene. Elias rubbed his face. And you ended up here. With me. You save me, she said simply. You give Coat. Coat is bond. Sacred. In Luthyra, gift of warmth is life bond promise. Elias choked. I didn't mean, it's just a coat. Amara tilted her head, serene but unyielding. To us not just. Means. Trust you. My life in your hands. He wanted to argue. He really did. But when he looked into her silver eyes, the words died. The pursuit. For the next 2 days, Elias hid Amara. Dominion patrols swept through the district, questioning residents, even barging into apartments. Elias played the part of the weary, unimpressive laborer. Head down, voice steady. No one suspected the alien queen crouched silently behind the false wall of his storage unit. In the quiet hours, she told him more of Luthyra, of seas that sang in moonlight, of coral palaces carved from living reefs, of festivals where lantern creatures rose into the air like constellations. Her words painted pictures so vivid Elias felt as though he had lived there himself. And she listened too. She wanted to know about Earth, about why humans left it, about Elias's own small life. He confessed things he rarely admitted aloud. His failed engineering exams, his dead-end factory shifts, the family he no longer spoke to. She listened without judgment, as though every detail mattered. In those moments, the coat seemed less a mistake and more a thread tying 2 lost lives together. Betrayal. On the 3rd night, the Dominion finally found them. Elias returned from his shift to find the door of his apartment blown inward, smoke curling from the lock. Inside, soldiers ransacked everything. Amara was gone. A cold panic gripped his chest. Neighbors whispered that she had been dragged away in restraints, escorted to the Dominion's central cruiser anchored outside the city. Elias stood amid the wreckage of his home, the absence of his coat gnawing at him like a wound. He could walk away. He should walk away. This wasn't his war, and no one would blame him for surviving quietly. But he remembered the way she had looked at him, shivering in the snow, clutching his coat as if it were a lifeline. He remembered her words, bond, sacred. And before he knew what he was doing, Elias was moving. The rescue. He broke into the factory warehouse where he worked, stealing a loader mech used for hauling ore. With its armor plating and mechanical strength, it was hardly a weapon of war, but it was all he had. Guided by adrenaline and reckless hope, Elias marched the mech straight through the streets, scattering civilians and drawing every eye. He reached the Dominion cruiser, looming like a black dagger over the city square, and charged. Blast of fire ripped against the mech's plating as he barreled through the outer guards.